Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market, and let's figure out what is happening and what we can expect moving forward tomorrow, especially into the big day. Of course, it is the Cybertruck delivery day, which apparently updated now. It's now going to start at, I believe, 3 p.m. Eastern as opposed to 2 p.m. Eastern, which was initially what we got told. Now, with that being said, let's jump into it. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button as it does help a lot. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section on YouTube is live. The link is down below where I share my intraday thoughts on Tesla as it's moving throughout the day, giving you updates, all that stuff. We're almost at 300 members, which is pretty damn sweet. So appreciate all the support. But with that being said, let's just dive into it. The link is below in the description, by the way. Tesla closing or about to close the day. We have about a minute left in the market at about $244 per share, which is going to be down just a tad over 1% on the day, which compared to the market is a slight underperformance, but nothing substantial, but absolutely a slight underperformance nonetheless. Now, what does this all mean? So let's talk about it. So there's a few things here, right? So first and foremost, right, obviously we had that massive breakout, massive green candle. We talked about how I personally expect to see like the low 250s, right? That's what I was saying yesterday, 250 to low 250s, right? That's exactly what we got today. Came up to, I think the highest point right here was, what was it? Let me see, take a look, 252.75, right? I mean, that's pretty damn good in my opinion, right? That's pretty much the low 250s. Now, we ended up almost breaking out, right? We did technically break out briefly, but obviously it's not about where it goes like intraday necessarily, unless you're looking at intraday charts, I guess, which I'm not at the moment. But it's also a matter of taking a look at this from the daily perspective. We couldn't close a daily candle, of course, above this bullish flag, right? And naturally, we got smacked back down, right? That's just kind of how the cookie crumbles, right? That's just kind of how it goes. We couldn't get an actual confirmed closure. So not only did we get a rejection, we got a pretty okay rejection as well. We ended up finding support at the 100-day moving average, which is this yellow line right here. Unfortunately, we did end up closing finally down below it ever so slightly. So things are looking not atrociously, right? It's obviously not great technically. I mean, extremely short term speaking, of course, but all along, it's still not looking that bad, right? Let me explain. So first and foremost, obviously this candle today on the daily, it's a bearish candle, right? It's obviously not, it's not bullish. It's definitely not bullish, but it's not extremely bearish, at least in my eyes. To me, extremely bearish candles are candles that show a top signal. This to me doesn't really show a top signal. At least I don't get top signal vibes from this. To me, this just, we went to a massive resistance and we got rejected, plain and simple, right? We're not like getting a rally and then showing like a top signal, like a doji candle or like a hanging man candle, or just things like that, right? That's not what this is showing me. To me, this is just showing me, yeah, we got rejected at a pretty expected area to get rejected at the top of the bull flag, and we came back down, and people are maybe hedging into the Cybertruck event just in case. Could be a little bit of a sell the news, and we talked about how this can potentially be a bit of a sell the news, down all the way to the low 240s, maybe high 230s, and then from there we bounce, right? We talked about all these scenarios in yesterday's video. Definitely check it out if you haven't. I'm not going to revisit every single scenario in this video again, but one of the main things I was personally looking at that I did draw out, which I'll talk about briefly, is going to be this, right? So first and foremost, if we zoom out a little bit here, or I guess squish the chart up a little bit, we're still technically bullish, right? We saw from this down low over here, we came up, set a low, set a higher high, set a higher low, right? Now we're setting, or I mean, rather, we have technically set a higher high, right? We went a lot higher, of course, right? Even on this candle alone, we already set a higher high, yesterday's candle. But today, of course, we went even higher. So technically, we set a fresh higher high. Beautiful. Now, we did close below yesterday's candle, right? So, there is some weakness here for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's more weakness tomorrow, or at least some weakness moving forward, maybe like tomorrow morning at least. But with that being said, we did set a higher high. Now, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we come back down. And this is kind of like my main, I guess, projection that I talked about yesterday. This is the one I probably most expected. Excuse me. It's going to be this, right? Where we set the higher high, we come back down. Excuse me. I just ate an apple. I'm like burping inside. Let me get it out of my system. Okay, there we go. It wouldn't surprise me if we, again, we get rejected, and then we ultimately come back down to set essentially a higher low, right? As long as we come up to, 240s, maybe even like high 230s, we're still in the contention, or we're still in the realm of setting a higher low easily, right? But on top of that, we're also in the position of potentially setting a retest, rather, of this overall bullish pennant, right? These two blue lines, that's the one we just broke out of, right? With this massive green candle yesterday. And now we're potentially coming back to retest that, right? And if that were to happen, let's say tomorrow, or even the day after tomorrow, right? Sometime around there, it'll be anywhere between 240 to about 238-ish, just somewhere roughly around that range, give or take, obviously, right? Not perfect to that range, but just roughly in that general area. Would be essentially just a retest. Not only will it be a retest, but we're also setting a nice, beautiful looking higher low, right? And then from here, assuming things go well and assuming the Cybertruck event isn't some kind of flop or just a massive sell the news event, I think we can get a nice, beautiful bounce. And as everyone thinks it'll continue being a sell the news event, we get a bear trap and we ultimately rally back up and we break through this bullish flag and we rally back up. Since of course, also keep in mind, Tesla is severely lagging on the overall market in terms of this, overall rally. It's significantly lower compared to most other like mega cap stocks, if you will, relative to their 52-week highs. And some are of course even setting new 52-week or even all-time highs, some of them too, right? I think like Microsoft is setting all-time highs. I think Apple's really close. NVIDIA setting all-time highs or has already recently set them. So keep that in mind, right? Tesla's definitely severely behind, but this is kind of the overall projection I foresee happening. And so far it's playing out beautifully. And with the closure today, wouldn't surprise me if it continues bleeding a little bit into tomorrow, maybe even into Thursday, even depending on how fast we bleed, I guess is the question. But ultimately, something like this is what I would not be surprised. And it's kind of my main projection. But of course, this is still a bullish projection. Like I tell my members all the time, it's foolish not to look, even if you're a bull, I'm a bull, of course, but it's foolish to not look at the potential bearish situation. So let's take a look at the bearish situation. This is what I expect from the bullish situation, right? A retest, nice higher low, and we continue rallying, right? Now, the bearish situation will be as follows. So first and foremost, 65-minute chart is setting up a potential, kind of a bearish divergence where essentially we have, a high here and then we have a lower high over here. The thing that makes it not great. So, okay. We have a high set on the RSI here when we were trading around this 244 area. Then we went, of course, all the way up to about 251 where we closed the candle here. And then, of course, we set a lower high over here. So, technically it's a bearish divergence. The thing that makes it awkward is the fact that we have this situation here, right? Where we were setting up a hidden bullish divergence during this. And that's where the rally came in. I talked about that, right? And that kind of makes us hit a bearish divergence a little bit less ideal, in my opinion. This is not like the most ideal looking bearish divergence in the world, but it is technically somewhat a bearish divergence. So this is one of those ones, take a look at it, make your own conclusions. I would personally take it with a grain of salt, but, technically it's a little bit there. So take that for what it's worth. But the bearish idea here, on top of that, of course, which is very short term on the daily, however, is going to be as follows. So ultimately, there's a couple of things I see happening for the bearish variance, right? So number one, we reject from here and we have a massive crash. But the way the crash is going to work is going to kind of depend on what actually happens. So first and foremost, I'd want to see, at least for the bearish side, a breakdown below this pennant, right? I want to see it not successfully retest, not come down, see retest it successfully at 240, 238, whatever, and then bounce. You'd want to see it go well below that, right? That's going to be the not ideal thing. Technically, even if we go below that, we can still potentially set a higher low, even if we go down to like 233, 234, because we never actually breached these lows here, right? So that's going to be something that can still happen. However, what potentially can happen here is as follows. So there's two variants, right? Number one, if we start setting lower lows and lower highs, that's gonna be bad. So the first step will be setting a lower low, right? That will be the first step. So essentially we're going well below like 230. We'll be looking like we're setting a lower low. That will not be super ideal. And that will be the first step to potentially having this bear thesis, gain strength, if you will. That's number one. Right. And then, of course, if you set a lower high, then that's number two. And then, it starts looking a little bit suspicious there. It's not looking as good anymore as it does, at least right this very moment. But that's option one, just essentially setting lower lows, lower highs. But a pattern that can be potentially, being developed here is going to be as follows, right? We can potentially be setting up what looks to be. So let's say we rally up here, then we set this, we came back down, then we rally back up like this. And then let's say we come back down to roughly the same level. Let's say we come back down to about this 230, like low 230s, we'll say something like this. And we go up again, bounce off of this. And then let's say we only go up to about 243 or something like that, like only this high, right? Not much higher than this. As I'm sure you can tell, this is setting up a nice looking head and shoulders pattern, a bearish head and shoulders pattern, right? This is something that is potentially developing. This is what I've been telling my members about, right? This is something I'd be watching out. Now, obviously, there's still work to be done in order for this to be set up, but at the moment, it looks like we could be potentially setting up the head of the head and shoulders pattern. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done. Like I said, it's just we're looking well into the future. We're looking like a few weeks out at the moment. At least I am, or at least I'm trying to, right? And this can be a potential bearish pattern that can potentially set up. So it's something I'd be on watch for slowly but surely, right? This might happen. So just, FYI, just, food for thought, keep that in mind. But ultimately, I am still technically more bullish than bearish. And the main reason for that is because, well, we're still in a bullish structure, setting higher highs, higher lows. We're still technically doing that. it's still looking good. Yeah, today looked kind of bad. Yeah, today closed below yesterday's high or yesterday's close. Yeah, we closed below the 100-day moving average, but we're still above the 50-day moving average. We're still above the 200-day moving average on the daily, on the weekly. We're still above the 21 EMA. The weekly chart is still not looking too shabby, right? We did get, of course, a rejection once again at the top of this channel, but usually with these bull flags, once you keep tapping the top of the bull flag, like in this case, you can see technically we tapped it once here. Which is what really started it. Then we tapped it again. Then we tapped it again. And today we tapped it again. You can see, right? Every time you keep tapping it over and over and over, eventually, ideally, at least the idea is you crack it. Like you crack through. You keep like breaking it. You keep like weakening that strength, if that makes sense, right? You're constantly pushing against it and constantly weakening the ceiling, if that makes sense. So, just hopefully that makes sense. I don't know if that, maybe that's a weird way to put it, but the more we're touching the top of this bull flag, the higher the chance that the next touch will be the one that breaks it. So just take that for what it's worth as well, right? On top of that, again, above the 200-day moving average, right, which is great on the weekly, but we also still have this absolutely gigantic looking inverted head and shoulders pattern, which of course is the bullish variance, right? The MACD is still looking like it wants to potentially flip bullish. It hasn't yet, but it's getting close. So, there's things that are looking pretty good. The RSI is the only thing that's making me not super happy. The RSI is looking a little bit weak, but it's also just kind of following the stock. So it's not like bad or great. It's just very neutral in my opinion. But ultimately, I still am more bullish than bearish, even though I think the short term can be a little bit bearish for the next, I don't know, week maybe or something like that, right? But ultimately, as long as we're setting higher highs and higher lows, and ultimately, as long as we don't collapse far below, ideally like 238-ish, and all it is just a retest of this bullish pennant that we broke out of just yesterday, I'm bullish. I'm feeling good, and it's looking like it's going to be ultimately a nice end of year rally for Tesla. Now, let's go ahead and talk about options here. Let's go ahead and increase the premium significantly. Let's not waste any time with low premium here. The main things to note is going to be as follows. Some new ones came out over here, actually. So we have not a lot of massive whales coming in for short-term options, but we have some longer-term options coming in here. We have almost an 800K premium for puts, right? 310 puts expiring January 2025, June 2025, almost 1 million in premium, 200 puts, right? Obviously out of the money, but very long dated, right? Then, of course, we have, wow, this is unbelievably in the money, 40 call. It's just like so in the money, it's ridiculous. But 40 calls, January 2025, right? Almost 1 million in premium as well. And then we have a little bit more spicier ones here, right? We have calls, but that are out of the money, right? We have 1 million here and 800K here. Both are one's 350, one's 400 calls, right? Very well out of the money, but of course they bought a lot of time, pretty much towards the end of 2025. So a lot of mixed results here. A lot of whales kind of, going kind of left and right, some bullish, some bearish, but they're all very far out. So they're all very safe, at least for the most part. And it doesn't really matter what Tesla does in the next couple of weeks, even maybe a couple of months, honestly, with the way these are set out. That's so far into the future, but take that for what it's worth as well. But ultimately, that's kind of what I am seeing right now. And the final thing to note and remember is the fact that we're still building up quite a lot of pressure on the weekly with this squeeze indicator. So once we pick a direction, expect to go in that direction pretty significantly and probably for the foreseeable future. And it's going to be hopefully to the upside. At least I'm still bullish to the upside. I think it'll have a higher chance to the upside. But with that being said, if it's to the downside, I still have cash ready to go and to deploy. And I did buy puts. Thankfully, I actually took the top today at the puts. I bought puts pretty much all the way exactly at the top at 252. And I'm holding that still as my hedge. And sold calls. Yeah. So all in all, that's kind of what I'm doing. And yeah, thank you for watching. And as usual, I'll see you tomorrow for the big day. Peace.